Don't you think that it's boring how people talk? Making smart with their words again. Well, I'm bored.
Hello and welcome to What the Faux Travel Podcast. You're here with Nick and Amy. It's the third mini episode of Series 3, and this one we're talking about countries that get a bad press.
Hello, mother foers. Welcome along to another episode. Thanks for joining us. So this month, to help us talk about this topic, we had the privilege of speaking to Nick Fisher, aka Indigo Traveller on YouTube.
Well, my parents actually met traveling, and my dad's still traveling right now, so they love it.
That was Nick himself. As you can hear, he came from a family that loves to travel, so it's in his blood.
Now, as we said, this episode is all about countries that get a bad press. So I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're quite interested in travel, and therefore you may have booked a holiday to somewhere you've really wanted to go, yet you tell your friends and family that you're going and they have nothing but negative things to say. Now, we're going to discuss today why this is. Why do some countries have a bad press? You know, we've been to some countries where, like Morocco, for example, where it didn't even come into our head that someone might say something negative about that. That seems like a pretty standard destination to us, yet people still had stuff to say.
Yeah, I don't know. Morocco in particular, is it just because it's Africa and people of our parents' generation might just think, oh my God, it must be dangerous? I mean, I know people who would find it terrifying to go somewhere like Turkey, and that's a well-established tourist destination. And I think that just comes down to, you know, where in the world it is. It's pretty much Middle East, or it's close to the Middle East, and it borders countries like Syria. And, you know, these are words, people hear Syria, Iraq, and they straight away think of the worst possible scenarios. Which
is understandable on the other side of the argument. You know, on the daily, we are hearing from our news channels, so-and-so place has been bombed, ISIS have captured these people from this place. So it's understandable to be scared of these places, but really, I think what we need to get out of our heads that, oh, if you're going to that place, you will 100% get captured, or bad things will happen to you when you go to that country, because we all know that day-to-day people are good people.
Definitely. And I think maybe we'll get into this later, but what the news failed to say is, okay, there might have been a bad event in a country, but a lot of the times in war-torn countries, it's actually only a small part of the country that you can't go to. And sometimes the rest of it is actually fine. But we'll get into all that stuff. Before we start the interview, it was quite funny because we were ready to get going with Nick. And then he was like, are we not going to play any games? So we said, for you, Nick, yes, we need to play the Capitals game. We're just going to play you a raw clip of audio, not really edited or anything. It's just us chatting on Skype, but you can hear how Nick got on.
Oh, and before we start, Nick, for some people who haven't heard the Capitals game, it's pretty self-explanatory. I am going to give Nick, Indigo Traveller Nick, a country, and he has to give me the capital city of that country, and he has 30 seconds. Ready? And Belgium.
Brussels.
Poland.
Warsaw.
Thailand.
Bangkok.
Mongolia.
Pass.
Russia.
Moscow.
Ethiopia.
Pass.
Peru.
La Paz.
Panama.
Panama City.
Portugal.
Pass.
Oh, time's up. You did all right. You did all right.
But it is tough, man. It's really tough. Okay, so I go for the answers?
Yeah.
All right, so Belgium, Brussels, you got that right. Poland, Warsaw, you got that right. Thailand, Bangkok, you got that right. Mongolia, you got that wrong. That's Ulaanbaatar.
Yeah, I couldn't pronounce it.
It's such a hard one, that one.
Russia is Moscow, you got that right. Ethiopia, you got that wrong. That's Addis Ababa.
I would never have got that.
Obviously. Peru, I think you said La Paz, but it's Lima.
Right, wrong country.
Panama, you got that right. Panama City. And Portugal, I think we ran out of time. You didn't get that, but that's Lisbon. So
Okay.
you got 5, which is pretty like average to good. Would you say?
That's pretty good.
Damn. It's so much easier when you're at home, but next time maybe.
There we go. So that is the Capitals game with Indigo Traveller. He got 5 on all right score. I think that's okay.
It is pretty good, and it's strange how much, when the music's on and you're under pressure, it's really hard.
Yeah, so you guys sitting at home who think this is easy, try it with your friend or something and you'll work out how hard it is. Right, so let's get back on track with this interview. So we kick things off with Nick, Indigo Traveller, by asking how he feels the media portrays different countries.
I think it kind of depends on the media, which media we're talking about, but I guess the media as a whole, the mainstream media, they portray certain true events, maybe in the right way. Sometimes not the case, but I think they're not covering the whole picture. So you'll hear I'll take Egypt for example, because that's a place I've been quite a few times. So they'll report on, let's say, a terrorist attack in Alexandria, which is at the very north of Egypt, right? It's a very small place, but Egypt is huge and there's so much more to see there, And I think you can't just paint the whole country after a terrible event, but a very small event in the grand scheme of things. And then that completely shuts down the tourism industry. It makes everybody have this kind of image towards, especially Muslims in the age that we live in, that they're all terrorists. So I think they portray it pretty bad as an overall picture.
So it's a good answer from Nick. We pretty much agree with him, although this is going to be interesting because we can kind of hear both sides of it. But obviously, we've got Amy here.
Hello.
Hi. You are one of these awful, blood-sucking media corporation people. You're a producer of a radio show. So it's interesting, like I said, I think we agree with a lot of what Nick was saying, but why, when we all turn on the news, whether it be TV or radio, why is it mostly bad stuff? Why is that newsworthy?
Well, at this point, I'll probably make it quite clear that, I'm a producer of a news radio show. So I wouldn't call myself a journalist in the traditional sense of the word, i.e. I don't go out looking for stories. They're kind of given to me and I choose what we talk about. By kind of trying to work out our audience, what are they going to want to talk about? What's relevant to these people? And I guess why negative stories get more attention is I'm going to kind of flip this on the positive. I actually think this is a good thing because if we have issues in this world, there's no way they're going to get sorted unless people know about them, unless we discuss them and have conversations. How many, without going too dark, how many paedophile cases have come out now where in the 20s and 30s, nobody knew of that going on. So people kind of suffer in silence. And I think it's really important to get these issues out there. And I think that's why negative press gets more attention.
That's a very good point. And I guess it's almost your duty to let people know if there has been a terror attack somewhere or if there is a sexual predator, out on the loose. I know we don't want to get too dark here, but it's almost your duty to tell people. I just think maybe people like us and Indigo Traveller, we're here to kind of balance things out, to tell people that, bad stuff does happen. Like when we're in the favela, you're going to hear the bad headlines on the news if someone gets shot. But we're here to tell you that that's a small percentage of it, and there's actually a lot of good as well.
Yeah, you're right. And I think it should be more balanced. I think we should have more conversations on the radio, in the newspapers, on TV of this positive stuff. But if I give you an example, so a positive story here where we live in Essex might be that a young student here has been given a grant for so much money to carry out some work. Maybe they're an artist or something like that. That's interesting for him, and congratulations to that person who doesn't exist. But well done to them. But that isn't really a talking topic for you and I. We don't care to that sort of level. Yet this negative press, if it is a terror attack, that concerns us. And that's really important to us. So I think it's because positive stories kind of affect that person in question, where these negative stories can affect many communities. So like I said, they need to be discussed.
Very good points there. Yeah?
You impressed?
I am impressed. Yeah, you gave a proper answer then.
Thank you. First time on the podcast. So one of the other ideas I've had is that although I've just said that, yeah, I don't think the positive news really stands up on its own as well as the negative, that I'm thinking it might be a good idea to have some sort of law in place where if a news channel gives out 3 negative stories, they need to back it up with a positive story, because I think it can be really easy for morale of a country or anyone who's watching that to really go down low. And after you watch the news, it's kind of like, oh, like what is going on with the world? And it's not a very nice feeling. So maybe we should have some laws in place to affect that. So we asked Nick if he thought that there should be some laws in place to ensure that media back up negative stories with positive ones.
Yeah, I mean, that would be ideal, you know, because you don't hear about, like, how Mrs. like Riverfield next door brought her neighbour, like, some bread for free because she wanted to, you know. Just, like, chuck in a few of those stories, like, here and there, you know, it'd be nice. At the end of the day, we know it's down to one thing, which is ratings, and ratings equal money. And, you know, I make, like, YouTube videos, and I understand, like, titles and thumbnails and things like that. And you can always easily, like, find a video that will attract more attention. But I think when you've got that kind of power, that you need to, you know, report on the bad and the good at an even kind of rate, just like you guys were saying. So when it gets to the big news outlets like Fox or CNN or BBC, then they've got to make money, and they've got to get everyone's attention. So the people love negative stuff, and that's how it works.
See, now that's exactly my point there. Exactly what Nick just said. So the story about the woman getting some bread for free. So heartwarming. That's such a nice story. And I would love to hear more things like that. But if we heard of that, every news channel, it would very quickly become, okay, I don't care. I don't care that she's got a bread for free, like, great for her. But that's what I was saying earlier. That affects that one person. It doesn't affect communities. If it was a company who had given a part of their revenue out to pay for bread for a whole town or something like that, that's definitely more news, isn't it? That's more worthy to listen to. And also in terms of money and advertising, yes, a lot of them are obviously they're advertising, they need to get their money from somewhere, these media companies. But for some of you, if you don't live in the UK and you're not too sure how the BBC works, so if you're a UK resident and you own a TV, you pay something called a licence fee. Now that is per household, I think it's about just over £100 a year.
Yeah, I think it's about £140 a year.
Yeah, so then the BBC divide that money into different areas. So, for example, part of that £100 per household will go to your local radio station, which is where I work. So we'll be given a certain budget and we'll have to stay within that. So we don't earn any money, or the BBC doesn't earn any money from advertising or anything like that. So they have to compete with these big companies that need to get this grabbing news attention kind of stories. They need to compete with that, but not in terms of for like commercial value.
Yeah, and because the BBC are paid for by the public, if you are running a story, you guys have to like triple check it's true.
Yeah.
Don't you? Whereas other news outlets, they just want to get them big headlines. If it's true or not, let's worry about that later.
Yeah. So for other news companies, it's let's get it out first. Yet with the BBC, it has to be correct and verified.
Yeah. Interesting. But my last thought on this really is just that I think the media just need to know how damaging it can be. Yeah, you can report one bad story in Tunisia or Egypt and suddenly the whole like tourism economy can just collapse, and it's quite scary. So people just need to take everything with a pinch of salt. Bad things happen everywhere in the world. Bad things have happened in London, the rest of Europe a lot lately, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't go to these places. Moving on, we asked Nick what countries does he feel have been misrepresented in the media?
Definitely one that I was just in that completely blew me away was Lebanon. That country has so much to offer in such a small package, and the people are so kind. The food is like my favorite food in the world. I'm going to get hated on by all my other countries that watch me, but it's the truth. I love Lebanese food. They've got mountains, they got beaches. Like, it's just so epic. Such a sick country. You guys have to visit. To be honest with you, I do a little bit of research on the countries I go to, but I go in quite blind. If you type in Lebanon into Google, you're just going to get at war with Israel and, battle over oil and things like that. You can find like positive things on YouTube, like, travel vlogs and like Lebanese people talking, but I don't really tend to do too much research because that can kind of change your view on the place before you get there, and it's kind of cool to go there with fresh eyes.
Oh, that's really nice. I like that he does that.
That's
the,
cool.
The no research thing.
Yeah, that is cool because you'd assume the best thing to do is to research before you go. I probably research a bit too much before we go.
Really?
I think so.
I'm not sure you do.
Do you not think so?
I don't know. I think we do research in terms of what you can do in a place, but I don't know. I wouldn't say you research it really thoroughly, and so everybody's opinions on that country and history and politics and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's right, stuff like that. And we don't turn up with like a strict itinerary.
So at this point, maybe we should just explain why we got Indigo Traveller on for this episode particularly, because we've been watching his YouTube channel for quite a while now and we love his videos. And we're not just saying that. I mean, we wouldn't have got him on the podcast if we didn't. But what I think is his unique selling point with his channel is that he does travel to these places that people say don't travel to. He's recently been to Azerbaijan. What other countries has he been to? Bangladesh.
And like less travel places like Georgia, and he's been to Egypt a few times, which I know a lot of people go to Egypt, but he tries to get off the tourist trail when he can.
Yeah, and he just makes it really interesting where you might have had these preconceptions of a country, yet he just breaks them all down and he shows you the local people. He does a lot of videos on the local price and how much things cost in these countries, and just shows the positive side of these countries.
Yeah, like we'll watch one of his episodes, say he was in Kazakhstan recently actually, and we'll watch one of his episodes and be like, okay, let's see what this is like, and by the end of the little like 7-minute episode we're like Googling flights to Kazakhstan.
It's good. No, he's a good positive influence. If this is something you want to see, then definitely go check him out.
Now, because he does go to a lot of places which not many tourists go to, we asked him, has a local ever, stopped him in the street and said, "Why are you here?"
Not like in real life, but in the comments section, I get it all the time, and it's really interesting to see. I get a lot of comments from all different kinds of countries, and it seems that I don't want to say I know their country better than them, but I think they're really scared of like what can happen, and they're scared of each other in a lot of ways. And I think like when you travel there and you're meeting like the high, the low, and the middle class, then you kind of get a bigger picture than a lot of people would living there. And I could say that for my own country. Like if a traveler went there, they'd probably meet a bigger range of people than I would when I was going about my day-to-day life, and they might even get a better feel about my own country. So yeah, I don't know. I think that in the YouTube comments, you get that all the time, and it's kind of annoying sometimes because it's like, it's not true. I'm not going to get my head cut off if I go on the trains. You know what I mean? When it comes to dangerous situations, I do have one story from Vietnam, and that's probably like the pinnacle of like the most, what I thought was danger but wasn't really danger. I can share that story because I thought, Vietnam was going to be similar to Thailand, and anyone who has been knows that it's nothing like Thailand. It's its whole own thing. And I was staying in the middle of nowhere because I bought a motorbike in Hanoi, and I was riding to the north to Sapa, to the mountains, and then I was heading down to Ho Chi Minh City. And I got completely lost one day because Google Maps in Vietnam is not the greatest. You'll end up in someone's backyard on top of a mountain a few times a day. But yeah, so I arrived in this random hotel that I just found off like looking at on the street signs and things. And in the middle of the night, these people started bashing on the door, and they were saying, "Police, police." I was like, no way am I opening the door like at 3 a.m. in some random place where nobody knows where I am. And the previous night, some people had taken a photo of me and put me on the internet with a caption that I translated, and it said, "He looks so Western." And so I didn't know that, and this photo got like 250 likes in the space of like half an hour to an hour. And I didn't know that like someone from the local neighborhood was coming to, kind of rob me or do whatever. So I basically like barricaded the door for like 6 hours until sunrise, and they were just smashing the door. They were not giving up the whole time. And I woke up and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. And finally went downstairs, and it was just all these like kind of army people, like they were policemen, but they were dressed in army uniforms. And apparently they just needed to register me in the local area for my own safety. I don't know why they decided to come and like really just scare the absolute crap out of me at 3 a.m. But that's kind of a story about where, you know, Vietnam's a super chill country. Meanwhile, I was getting freaked out. But at the end of the day, that wasn't unsafe. You know, that was just a misunderstanding.
Now that sounds like a pretty crazy experience.
That sounds like one of them situations where hopefully not many people get this, but you think to yourself, this is it. This is how I'm going to die. Like, this is where my life ends. But like you said, it can just be a misunderstanding in different cultures when you're thinking, this is it, it's the end. What actually happened was nothing really. There was no big deal. But you can see why that would be really scary.
Yeah, for sure. I think one time that really sticks out for me in terms of our travels and when we felt things were getting a little bit dangerous was when we was in India and we were traveling. It was with our tour group actually, and a few cars turned up, and because there was such a big group, they kind of put us in different cars. Yet our car, we were with our friends James and Nikki, and our driver was just a little bit different. And it's obviously just cultural differences, but we were doing a good 5-hour drive or something along those lines, and our driver took us a completely different way and we went off track, and we was just really scared that we were never going to meet them again, to the extent where I think you were in the front and you were writing a text to your dad saying we've gone off track, and then you just thought I'll send it if I need to, and it's like written and explaining what had happened.
Yeah, I was ready. Like, I was ready to send this SOS text message, but like when you see the rest of your group go a different way, it's like you just start to freak out. And I think our driver couldn't speak English, whereas our actual tour guide was on the other, I think it was a bus, and he could speak very good English. So we couldn't talk to this guy, but I had this text saying, I think we might have mentioned this on the India episode, but anyway, I had this text which is like to my dad. I was like, okay, 2 hours ago, we were just south of this town. We're somewhere in the north of India. But in the end, there was no problem.
Yeah, and I think is good to say as well, it's not just because he couldn't speak English, it was his manner. And I think when you're traveling, you really learn to listen to your gut, and my gut feeling was thinking something. I hadn't said anything to you. You were independently thinking the same thing. And when we got out of the car, because we were meeting for breakfast, it was very early in the morning, we were doing this drive. I think we just got off a sleeper train. And it was just really weird that we both had that feeling. So it was obviously something that the way he was acting.
Yeah, because you said something to me and then I said, check out this text message I had ready.
Also, I think if that situation happens again, I think you should text your mum. I feel like she'd be more proactive in getting things done when your dad would kind of panic and just kind of worry.
And we're not just saying that because she's probably the only one that's going to listen to this, but yeah, she'd be better in an emergency. I don't know why I had it. Maybe it actually was written to my mum. I don't know, because I think I normally would message my mum in that situation.
Yeah. Oh, your mummy's boy. Right, so with Indigo Traveller, the next question we asked him was, what underrated countries do you want people to go to?
I really like Georgia and Armenia, and obviously Egypt, and I would say Lebanon as well. And Bangladesh is a cool one if you're up for like some extreme travel, but those are a few that I can think off the top of my head here. So, for example, Georgia and Armenia, those countries are basically like untouched in terms of travelers, especially if you go out to the back roads and things. Like the capital cities are pretty touristic, but you just go for like a drive and you'll end up surrounded by ladas, like near mountains, and there's horses going down the road, and it's just like beautiful. It's what personally I look for in traveling. It's just a stunning experience, I think. And Bangladesh is like the most densely populated city is Dhaka, and just to see that is just incredible, and the people are so kind because it's one of the least visited countries in the world. So all these reasons, I would say just, use the same common sense as you would most other places, show respect, but just try to speak to the locals. And you don't have to speak their language. You can communicate with like body language and sign language and a few words here and there. And I don't know, just like interact with locals, because in countries that aren't that well visited, then the people are more interested in tourists. If you go to somewhere like, don't get me wrong, I absolutely love Thailand, but if you go to Bangkok, like they see tourists every single day, all the time. They're not interested at all. So I mean, while you still can, I'd say, interact with the locals.
Now that is so true what he said, and that has got to be the ultimate best part about going to a country that is not well traveled. You are going to have such a great experience with the locals, because they're all just going to want to know why you're here and where you're from, and they just want to be nice, and they want to have pictures with you. And it doesn't even, I mean, I can't speak for all of them, of course, but for most places like this, it doesn't even come into their head to try to scam you for money, because they don't ever see tourists, so they're not thinking that way. So you will have a great experience when it comes to the locals by going to the less travelled places.
Yeah, and also they just want to show off their country. They want to show you their food, they want to show you their tea, or you to come over and meet their family, or, you know, hold their baby and things like that. They're just so interested in showing you their culture. You know, they think you're here for a reason, I'm going to show you the best parts of it, which I think is the best part.
Exactly, yeah, and they just want you to enjoy your time there. So that's really, really cool. So next thing we asked Nick was, we wanted to know why he started his YouTube channel.
I travelled for 2 years, just like a bit with friends and a bit solo, but mainly solo. And I was just loving it so much. And then I had to stop and work like back in New Zealand, and then worked a bit in Europe as well. And I just thought I must be able to work and travel somehow. And I love making videos and kind of sharing experiences, I guess. So I decided to put them together. And that's what we have. I grew up like mountain biking, and with mountain biking there's like this big video kind of industries surrounding it. So I knew a bit about video editing, and it was always a huge thing to me. And I bought like so many video cameras, but I used them for like 2 seconds, like when I was younger, like not really expensive ones. And then I was like, man, I need to commit to this because I love it, but I just need to like actually commit to it. And I thought this would be a cool opportunity.
So that's how he started his channel, but I was wondering why it's called Indigo Traveller.
So I came across this video, this like YouTube video about like the meaning of indigo or something. I just stumbled across it, and apparently it means you can use it as like verbs or adjectives and things, but it basically means like skipping barefoot with your head in the clouds or something. So I just thought, you know, why not? It was just like a 1 second thing, and I just kept it.
And that's it. The best names just come to you. Like, What the Fo?
What the Fo Travel Podcast. So we thought we'd give Nick a little bit of time to give his channel a good old plug, because we know it's his favourite thing to do.
I don't know, just go and check out my channel if you guys want to. No pressure, but if you like kind of travelling and often off the beaten path and kind of interacting with locals, and I'm trying to push like interviewing more and things and getting locals' perspectives, because I think that's pretty special. But yeah, if you want to, go and have a look at my channel, Indigo Traveller. On YouTube it's Indigo Traveller, that's with 2 L's, so the English spelling, and at indigo.traveller on Instagram, and Indigo Traveller on Facebook as well.
So, yeah, thanks for giving us your details there, Nick. Now, I must admit, even at the time, we could tell he actually hates, like, plugging his stuff and kind of talking about himself. But that's just because he's so, like, humble, really.
Yeah, very modest.
Yeah, exactly, very modest. So, because you did such a bad job of plugging your channel, Nick, we're going to do it for you. It really is very, very good. And, like, there's good information. He interacts with locals. There's also a lot of humour in there as well.
Yeah.
So, like, he'll be walking through the street, and then you might see in the background some guy gives him a weird look. But then when he edits, he obviously notices that, and then he really zooms in on the guy's face.
There's a lot of SpongeBob jokes in there as well.
There is loads of SpongeBob things, like when it goes from one scene to another. A few moments later, and
you love that.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of like little in jokes where if you've seen certain movies, you might think, that's a quote from that film. But he really does think to put some humour in and make it an entertaining watch.
Yeah, for sure. And just while you were talking there, Nick, I just went on YouTube to see how many followers or subscribers he's got, and he's currently got 100,510 subscribers. So he's obviously doing very well. He's been uploading regular videos, I'd say, for just up to 1.5 years now.
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, he's doing very well. We would like to tell you to go watch it.
For sure, we would recommend it. And like Amy said before, we only get people on the show that, you know, we like ourselves and we think are interesting, and we think that you guys will find interesting. So I thought that was all really good, shining a light on some of these countries that don't get visited, you know, that much. And it's inspired us to have a look at places. I mean, we do have some travel plans coming up, which we're not announcing just now, tease, but a possible route.
You're not meant to say tease after.
Tease. A possible route maybe via Ethiopia, whereas before I would have probably ruled that out and thought I would have assumed I don't think you can go there. But the more research I've done, actually, the more of an interesting place it looks, and actually very tourist friendly. So it really has opened our mind.
But well, also a difference of opinion. I still to this day don't really understand why you have that opinion of Ethiopia. I guess maybe I haven't heard anything of it, negative or positive. So, and just kind of the person I am, I was like, well, yeah, of course we'll go there. We're going to every country at some point. So yeah, let's go.
Yeah, which is a great attitude to have. But yeah, why did I have these, preconceptions about the country?
Yeah,
Don't know.
for sure. Now, I'm sure a lot of you listening to this have your own opinions and we welcome them. So, send us an email, whatthefopodcast@gmail.com. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we're on Facebook. So, yeah, get in touch whether you disagree or agree. Everybody's got their own opinion and we want to make it clear this is our opinion. We can't do any more than that.
Perfect. So that's it. We're done now. Signing off. Mic drop. Next episode is Argentina. See you then. Please feel free to get in touch with the show. You can do that by checking out our website, www.whatthefaux.travelpodcast.com. From that, you can find all of our social media channels. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Our email address is whatthefauxpodcast@gmail.com.